Okay, I'm
For
gonna
free.
assume you did your homework, man. Ready?
I
One.
didn't do anything.
Did you sing?
I hummed a little bit. Yeah, I kind of dropped the ball.
Doesn't count.
Yeah,
Is that the lyric? Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me.
it is. It is.
Okay.
That's the one.
I don't, here's the point. Here's the thing, Rob. I just don't want to be the only person making an ass out of himself.
No one thinks you're making an ass out of yourself, as far as you know.
You sound good each week.
I sound
Exactly.
like
You sound good each week. I mean, I can't play that. You can't.
We know
I
that
can't
this.
either. I always screw up every single time. It's like horrid. Hey, how's it going, Marc?
Hey, did I miss a
Hola.
song? The intro?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, and we never re-record, so
Yeah, because
Never.
we're not professional.
no, totally unprofessional.
The only reason we do this show is it's actually a subversive audition for Leonard. He's hoping that some music exec in LA is going to catch this and sign him to a band or something.
No,
Oh my
That's a
god.
good plan.
my
Sounds like a
closet
good.
intention.
Yeah, because IoT is clearly not a good plan. So I think you should be in a rock band.
Isn't that horrible? I have to resort to the music industry to make dinero. The IoT is just not cutting it. That's just
When you find out that you're more likely to be a lead guitarist in a rock band than have a success with IoT, you may be in trouble.
I'm trying. So, okay, when Dave Grohl retires from playing guitar and just focuses on vocals, I want to take over. That's like the whole objective. So all 50, whatever. This is gonna be episode 57.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a run up to that objective.
I saw Dave Grohl and Foo Fighters music in a Ram truck commercial the other day.
Really?
Yeah. So
Not
It's
surprising,
good.
but
it's getting real.
Yeah.
I want to see Dave driving around in a big old truck.
by the way, check it out. I'm wearing grunge colors. Completely depressing granola olive.
Excellent, man.
Yeah.
We're so depressed here in Seattle.
I know, what the hell? I mean, when
I can't see the screaming trees because of the black hole sun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Rob,
hey,
apparently I left Seattle on the best 2 weeks we've had all year, right?
Yeah, pretty much. How was
timing. Great.
how was Whitefish and Glacier, bro?
Amazing. It was amazing. It was amazing to be disconnected. Not to have like emails come through and stuff, and then when you get back to the resort, you could plug into the Wi-Fi, but still couldn't make the phone call.
Yeah.
It was rad.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
But Adam, man, welcome back. It's great to have you again. And,
Thank you.
The reason why I play basket case is kind of a inside joke. This dude's like sitting in the middle of okay, this is what he does. He wakes up at 5:30 in the morning to take a hike and clear his mind. And I said, and then he suggests that he is sort of a basket case, and I said, no. People who do that are not. People who are basket cases are they are deprived of that, and they're all always strung out on something. So that's why we played that song. But dude, it's great to have you back, man. I think we're gonna have some fun here, right?
Absolutely.
All right. So what are we gonna talk about? Does anyone know? Because oftentimes, we jump on the show and nobody knows what the hell we're going to talk about. Right? I know.
Well, people really think that we plan.
No, we don't. We absolutely don't plan. This is like literally we get on to chat. This is like as if we were in a coffee shop, a Denny's, right?
No.
8 a.m. in the morning. No, no Denny's.
No, we would never be at Denny's, dude.
Denny's, the Grand Slam breakfast.
Waffle House.
Waffle House.
Yes, Waffle House.
The beautiful thing is Marc is staring at us, going, "What the hell are these Americans talking about?"
We are Waffle House people.
Oh.
For real.
But my question is, in this Waffle House, can you have breakfast with wine or beer? Or
BYOB. It's BYOB. Or people actually go there at 3 a.m. after they've had wine and beer.
That would be Denny's. There you go.
Does anyone ever notice on Twitter, like from time to time, like on a Saturday night, Waffle House is trending for some reason? It happens a lot, actually. All kinds of weird stuff is happening at Waffle House on Saturday night.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Big time.
It's sad because we don't have Waffle House up here in the Pacific Northwest, and so I have to go down south to get all that goodness.
Yeah, there's a whole subculture around.
A hot, greasy griddle where they just throw everything on.
And a lot of variations of hash browns that you can get. So
You're making me hungry.
It's a thing.
It is. So I'll give you a hint what we're talking about today. Today, oh man, look at this. We have 6 people on. This is amazing. I mean, if Rick shows up, it's going to be 7. It'll be a world record. Hey,
the smart guy on the team just joined. We're in trouble.
Exactly.
We have a quorum.
Yeah.
He's looking.
Quorum. This is
Is
awesome.
your kid behind you?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what we're going to be talking about. All right. So it's the SMB IoT value proposition, and we have Adam on because you work with a lot of the medium size and even maybe the smaller dudes out there, and we'd just love to have a chat with you about what you're seeing out there, and maybe we can all kind of help our audience figure out, well, what is the value of IoT if you're a smaller operation? You might not have the scale out issues that a large enterprise has. And then maybe you can share with us, like, what are some of those solutions that kind of resonate, at that level? Because I think we look at IoT kind of monolithically, right? And a lot of it's focused on large enterprise. But when you look at economies, jobs and, productivity is largely due to, or it can be attributed to small and medium-sized businesses, right? And we don't typically talk about that stuff, so that's what we'll talk about. Does that sound cool?
Sounds great.
Yeah, Marc was nodding his head, so he seemed really happy about this. And David, because he only caters to these large, massive enterprises, maybe he'll learn something.
But it's important to realize that most people work for small and medium businesses.
Oh yeah.
Most people don't work for giant companies.
Oh.
It's actually not even close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Adam, I want to get your feel for this. Let me say something really quickly. Most people don't even know what the hell IoT is. Mm-hmm. Outside of the bubble that we're in. So really quickly, a friend of mine, he's he's a manager over at FedEx. I started talking to him about digital and IoT, and he goes, "What the hell are you talking about?" And then his second thing was to say, "That is the dumbest stuff I've ever heard. It's not going to work." Okay,
sure.
That's like what it's like.
Is this 2021 or this is 2021?
This is
conversation?
2019. But I don't think anything has really changed since then. But I wanted to start off the conversation with that, and then I'm going to just shut it up because I think I ran my quota out.
Well, I think just to kind of build on the SMB market, it is 50% of U.S. manufacturer output, right? So you figure that, you take away the really big players, 50% of what we produce in this country is from SMB. So that's a massive market that's not being addressed.
Yeah.
Right. So, And I think when you look at that market, often they don't know what IoT means, or they look at it as a marketing term and stuff. And so I feel if, for us, just to kind of set the stage, I don't think we have the term IoT in any of our true presentations or marketing content. So it's not there. We don't talk about it anymore. So I think that's changed a lot in the last 3 or 4 years. 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah. If you guys have seen that. And I think the other thing that we'll kind of talk about too is, I saw, your comment the other day about Rob's comment about the plumbing, like IoT is the plumbing.
Yeah.
And that couldn't be more true today than ever before. And what's exciting from our side is when we're dealing with one of the largest, engine manufacturers right now. And then we're working with a small SMB manufacturer of agriculture equipment that build 400 or 500 a year. And what's so cool is the large engine manufacturers actually allow us to plumb into their data sets to provide value back to the small SMB. And that didn't happen 4 or 5 years ago. So the plumbing story has gotten a lot better over the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, that just reminds me of like IT in the 80s, 90s. We're all trying to interconnect these computers. It's the same thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I wouldn't know what IT is in the 80s and 90s. I wasn't born until Windows 98 came out. So I don't even know what you're talking about.
What is IT? Does it exist?
A bunch of DOS computers, I think.
But in that scenario, though, IoT, I mean, it is soup to nuts from like the sensors and the controllers of the tractor and the engine on the tractor and the telemetry device and getting it up into a cloud platform and then be able to interface with this big, engines companies, back office, and then provide that value to that end customer. The customer doesn't care about the IoT piece between it. They're just caring about the value they're getting from that ecosystem working together that's being plumbed by IoT. And that, I think, is what we really need to focus on. Not so much if we went in there and said, here's our IoT architecture and our solution, all that stuff, they could care less. They're going to say, we have this thing we got to accomplish. How are we going to get it done?
I'm going to take notes. So first thing, do not call it IoT. Check.
Right.
Check.
Check.
I actually have a marketing company. I redid their website, and they are one of the largest and fastest growing construction companies in the South, San Antonio surrounding areas. They're really large. They have big DOT contracts, bridges, roads. They build a lot of infrastructure, and they have a massive fleet of equipment, tractors and excavators, you name it. And they don't even use the term IoT, but they know that their tractors are connected and they know where they are. And it's used as a theft kind of tracking and asset tracking tool for them. But I've talked with them a lot about the different technologies that they use, and they're very advanced. They're doing a lot of really big things, but not one of the executives in the boardroom knew what IoT was or cared less about it. They just work with all of their vendors, and their vendors offer them these solutions, or they pay a monthly fee for the tracking and knowing where all their equipment is. And that's really all they care about is making sure they don't have theft, and they know where all of their equipment is, and that they know that their employees are safe and they're compliant. Compliance is probably one of the biggest issues that they have in terms of all their government contracts, especially. So it's real simple to them. If it creates some kind of value or cost savings or helps solve some of the issues that they're working on each day, then they're all for it, because they're fast growing, have a good amount of cash flow, and they're ready to invest in those kinds of solutions. So if you started speaking to them about IoT and technology, they would just kind of go off and walk away. They don't care.
So
Stephanie, until what point you have to lie to your customers? I mean, until what point you need to lie to your customers?
I mean,
let me give you an example.
There's nothing wrong with the white lie, huh?
No. That what you explained. Remember me that when I was working on asset tracking, and the managers were asking me, like, I was showing like a Sigfox tracker, like a low power weight area network technology, And they were asking me like, okay, so there is a SIM card inside this tracker, and I was, okay, yeah, yes, and let's
Maybe.
go to install it. Never mind. So yeah, I was in this situation of I shouldn't explain start explaining technically to these people what's inside of these.
I think we've seen a big shift in that too over the last 5 years, though, because I would say 5 years ago, the companies we worked with, even if they're SMBs, wanted to have their own SIM card data plans on there because they had a contract with AT&T or Verizon or whomever. Now they don't care. Now they're like, give us the solution. We don't want to manage that. But they might have a carrier that they need to have because of coverage areas or whatever the case is. Yeah. But they're not taking that internal anymore. That whole shift, that was probably the first indicator that we saw was because they understood SIM cards, they understood cell phone plans, they understood, we could reduce the cost there. Once they started saying, we don't need to handle that, and then they started allowing you to interface with like their cloud and stuff like that, that's when that shift started to happen where you could deploy true solutions rather than, an architecture of IoT components, if you will.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that this is a little bit of bias and hype? So, Marc's example, right, of someone, going through a solution and asking the question, it's a SIM base, like why did this buyer think that? Is it bias? Is it marketing hype? Which at this point we would say that it worked, right? We activated this person thinking SIM cards. And then, all the way to Adam's comment, which is, does this thing work? Great. And, oh, by the way, it needs to work and I don't want to manage it. So what is it that you're doing? I mean, this is only like maybe between Marc's interaction and your story, Adam, we've got like just a couple of years, and there's this shift, right, in IoT where instead of asking it's a cellular, what chipset do you have there? Well, which comes now? It's like, what does it do? And can you manage it? And is it great? And so it's quite interesting, this arc that you guys are explaining here.
Yeah, I think I would say that some industries, though, they kind of have some tech terms that are kind of under their umbrella that they understand. I know that a lot in the automotive or transportation or even logistics space, they talk about GPS all the time. Like they all know what that is. Yeah. So I would say that each industry, there is some tech jargon that they understand and they'll talk about. But I think the word IoT, and some of them know what that is. They kind of have an idea, but they don't look to that. They don't shop for that. They don't go out and when they're trying to make a decision, they don't look up IoT solutions. That's a foreign thing for them to kind of, that their first step is not to go that route. So that's
another nugget. So to all the SEO people out there working for the IoT company, you listen to Stephanie Atkinson.
Yeah,
and
IoT.
Yes, you just gave like hundreds of thousands of dollars of free advice right there.
Oh yeah. Change IoT to Hocus Pocus. And you guys over at Verizon need to change your IoT business group to something else. Call it the Hocus Pocus business group.
Wow.
We're doing just fine, sir. Better than some people just sitting in La Jolla sipping expensive Capital coffee.
It's, just to kind of reinforce the whole deal about, should we say IoT? Do people even know what it is? So yesterday, I got to do a presentation, a panel discussion live in an in-person event with Adam and our good friend Rich Rogers, who I work for at Hitachi. Yeah. And so it was a Pacific Northwest, aerospace, association group there. And so it was actually about cybersecurity. So Rich and I were talking about how to secure a factory floor and stuff like that. But, we talked about IoT and IT and OT and a lot of that stuff. And most of the folks in there, they were all small manufacturers, small shops, 20 people, sometimes maybe 4 people, you never know, kind of orbiting Boeing, a lot of them, as you can imagine, in North Seattle and Everett and Marysville and all that, as you all know. And so, but yeah, you know what? A lot of them are like, yeah, no, we do this job, we make this stuff, and so we're just kind of we're explaining it to him, and I think it could have taken it or left it, I think the best value for them was just a heightened awareness of security issues of bad guys hopping from your carpeted floor enterprise to your tiled floor shop.
Mm-hmm.
Adam, so out of Rob's comment, and then back to you, Adam. So would you, you've already stripped the IoT out of Elevate. Wow, that sounds like a great tagline, by the way.
I'm using it.
Obviously,
French, man.
You continue to drive value, to the customers that you're serving, and the partnerships that you're working on, and so on. So is it oversimplifying it by saying that you're speaking to industry in business and industry terms about problem solution value, and that there's just no tech jargon, and therefore that is catalyzing into success for you guys at the moment? So
yeah,
just leave the hype.
Yeah, for sure. So I think talking to like the business cases and to the industry problems and use cases, and understanding that, I say this all the time, but the supply chain matters. The supply chain truly matters. That if I'm going to sell into an industrial SMB manufacturer, they already have their supply chain set up. So being sure that you've built those ecosystem partners that talk with the controllers and the devices and everything. We work with a lot of device manufacturers that talk to the cloud, the gateways, and we have customers that have said, we will not put this gateway on this machine. We'll wait for our supplier to release this gateway and have them talk with you guys. And because they've already tested out all that hardware, and they're not going to change that bill of material. And I think that sometimes gets overlooked when IoT companies have tried to hover into an industry that they didn't come from. They don't realize how complex that supply chain is. And then also how that supply chain, the relationship they have with the customers and what they do for tier 1, tier 2 support on that level. And so I think that's been kind of a big missing factor. And then it also allows you to scale, because that supply chain is constantly inside those small customers, where if you're an IoT company, you can't go to that factory floor that has 4 employees on it, right? Even if you have a product, it's not worth your time to get in there. But if you have a supply chain partner that's in there doing other stuff with them, and they can sell your solution, and that solution gets in there, now you get scale, and you can start to get a lot of those SMB companies that are around there. And so, for us, we've really looked at it from the business case, but then making sure that all that stuff of IoT that needs to happen, all that plumbing that needs to take place with those suppliers, with those tech and the controller, can be as out of the box as possible, and can be made for that supply chain, so that when the business case comes, we're not dealing with an 8-week science project, and they feel trust that all that's validated. And I think that's the other big piece, is trying to put those building blocks together, the supply chain, so that you can go in there and solve that business problem.
Hey, Adam, actually, this is a question for Adam and Marc, and I'd like for both of you, both of your responses. I was wondering, how much are you seeing SMBs being pressured by the big guys? So a lot of SMBs are like, oftentimes they're suppliers to the big guys, right? How often do you see them being pressured by the bigger guys to up their quote unquote IoT game, and getting kind of up to snuff, right? And the reason why I say this is, back in the day when I was doing a lot of this procurement hub stuff, you had these big companies trying to pressure their suppliers to be part of the supply chain hub, right? And this is back in the days when we're trying to figure out web services and WSDL and all this other crap. And Commerce One, for those of you who are ancient enough to remember Commerce One, you had these internet supply chain solutions and big marketplaces that were coming up. Almost none of them succeeded, right? And the only company that prevailed or survived was Ariba, which got bought out by SAP. But there was this whole dynamic of the big guys pressuring the smaller guys, but then the smaller guys really just kind of screwing up the game because number one, they didn't care, or they didn't have the money to upgrade. So I was wondering how much of that you guys are seeing out there, if that dynamic is playing out.
Yeah, we see it really heavy right now in rail. You see it heavy in the rail industry, the agriculture industry, that the end users, the big companies are pulling this in. The chemicals industry, a lot of the rental companies that are out there they really need this data for their assets and stuff. And so if I'm a small customer, we have one right there in California, builds a couple hundred machines a year. Their end customer is the largest, pistachio grower in the world, and they want a ton of data coming off those machines. And so it's pulling that through now. What makes it, I think, a lot easier is this whole, template or format of how we can do APIs and how we can integrate into these cloud offerings. They're not all on-prem scenarios anymore. Everyone has some type of hybrid strategy. People are a lot more flexible to work with than I think they were 4 or 5 years ago. So that's helped accelerate that adoption. And you can say, oh, we're on Azure, we're on AWS, and we can do this thing and that. And you can sit with somebody that has cloud architects inside their company, and they didn't have that, again, 5 years ago. So we're seeing it pulled. Two interesting things. We're being pulled into that more and more. And before, to go back to the supply chain, you had to really respect your channel that brought you into the end customer. And I think previously that channel wanted to control that entire conversation. Now they're saying, hey, here's our partner. They did all of our IoT for us. We're going to make that handoff and connection and let you all run with it. And they don't need to be part of that conversation because they just know they got to deliver the business value, and they don't want to get in the middle of that. And that's been a major shift. And I'd even say that's probably in the last 12 months or so. I mean, that's been pretty recent that we've seen that. And it's collaboration. It's the communication piece, which is something else we'll talk about. I think IoT, by the way, not to go off on a tangent here, but I'm going to go off on a tangent. The collaboration it allows for the ecosystem, for the partnerships is incredible. And I think especially in the COVID, post-COVID world where we're all digital now, digital communication, everyone's comfortable. I mean, we have machines out there that are doing all the stuff about sending to different business systems and everything, but then they're sending the data to Slack messages, and people, the supplier, the end user, the manufacturer, they're collaborating around all this information on a down machine or a machine that's not working correctly. Just this morning, we're watching Slack messages from a partner of ours in Oklahoma who has machines in Florida, and the panel lights on the machine is showing one thing, but the error messages they're getting from the controller to their business systems is something else. And everybody inside that ecosystem is collaborating on Slack, looking at real machine data in real time on an application. You go, this is so cool, because IoT is the thing that's allowing that to happen.
Yeah.
It's the plumbing behind it, but all they're caring about is why is the panel showing us the major indicator lights and something's wrong here? And I'm like, wow, this is pretty neat. This is cool. Small company, big company, small end customer, and they're collaborating in real time to solve a true problem.
Yeah.
You're using a Verizon SIM card. There you go.
Wow, Verizon SIM card.
Powering the whole thing.
Hey, no plugs allowed.
but it's a perfect example where the customer said this is actually a customer that specified the supply chain. They said we absolutely have to be on the Verizon for whatever reason. They said they had to be on for the coverage maps, and that's why all those partners coming together to play are a really big deal.
Wow.
Yeah, and for really ancient people that don't know what Slack is, it's like CompuServe and IRC. It's same thing. Just chat. Same thing. That's all you need to know. Rob, was that a Bud Light or was that a Diet Coke? Neither.
Diet Dr. Pepper.
No, I can never drink that stuff. I think it's so disgusting.
Yeah.
Come on,
I
man.
really struggle with it. Isn't that prune juice?
What?
But I think that's
It's like carbonated prune juice.
Are you just talking about? Are you slamming Dr. Pepper?
Oh,
I think he is.
Like
Are you slamming
prune juice? It's like
the pride of Waco, Texas? Oh my God!
DP is like the best dessert ever.
oh my god.
With or without Jack.
but I think if you look at that collaboration, this story right there, it's going to allow so many smaller companies to work with bigger players, because now you're not flying people around to do all of this, remote service work. You can do a lot of that in real time. And so I think that is a huge piece that IoT is enabling, right? It is that plumbing to make that happen. And it's pretty cool. And it wasn't hard integration, right? To get that machine data, to go to these different business systems wasn't, big science projects. It was a couple software sprints.
Great example.
Got done.
Marc, do you see this across the pond? That collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. I think IoT it's about win-win. So I don't know. I don't know a lot of IoT companies succeeding nowadays. So the only solution is to collaborate if we want to succeed, right? But actually, I had a question for Adam, because I'm not, to be honest, I don't know about your business model. But do you think that a small, medium business are more or potentially can adapt easily to new business models that IoT can introduce into their business, like paying on OPEX instead of CAPEX, for example? If you go to a very big company or like a city, they will say, no, everything should be CAPEX. We have to pay in one shot. And there are these new business models that are disrupting the IoT, like OPEX. And sometimes I had this feeling that, okay, I'm not going to win this project with this big company because they don't accept to pay on OPEX, like every month, a specific fee or dynamic fee, depending on how they use. So how do you see this? So the small, medium business are more prepared?
So for us, when we see a company that's trying to change a business model of their company, and we have a handful that are doing that, they really do have to have a designated digital leader. Often they give this responsibility of a digital leader to somebody that's already doing two or three other roles, and it becomes like second nature. So the companies that we've seen that are succeeding at it have really put in, and that person's typically sitting somewhere between the business side, the service side, and the engineering teams, almost as a project management role or a product manager role. And their goal is to do that digital transformation piece of that new business model. And so they're meeting with their end customers, their dealers, the use cases, validating it. So the companies that are investing in that role or that small team are having success. The ones that are not, and they just put like a title on some or a responsibility on someone, we see it flounder, pretty bad. So we kind of have like what does success look like when they want to do that. And it's interesting because one of the largest medium-sized equipment builders in the U.S., I think they have a couple dozen brands underneath them. All these brands they run as their own like subs, and the ones that have put in the digital leaders are excelling, and the ones that haven't are definitely lagging. So
that was I'll chime in because I think the question is with SMBs, are you seeing that they to be more flexible and more open to monthly recurring fees and monthly recurring charges or as a service versus I gotta have this one shot capital expenditure?
For sure, without a doubt.
Thank you, Tiffany, for the translation.
Yeah. I thought we were trying to change their business model because we have customers that are moving to an OpEx model with their equipment or with what they're delivering. So they're actually changing how they're delivering their product. But for consuming a service or product, without a doubt. Yep, without a doubt. And it's almost expected now because they know they can't handle that internally.
And Adam, as a solution provider, do you guys have a preference?
Yeah, I like the MRR. I like that monthly recurring revenue for sure. Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing from the investor community, generally what they're looking for on the books is where they like that monthly recurring money coming in. They don't like the cyclicality in those numbers. So they love to see that MRC coming in and it's almost like it's a given. And especially when those numbers keep going up. Yeah. Retention.
And what we found is in the equipment builder sector, multi-year contracts are typically paid up front. You recognize the revenue over the term of the contract. So it ends up being a nice win-win for the solution provider. And because they don't want to deal with cutting all of these invoices against open POs over and over again, they just want to get it out the door. And it's an OpEx strategy for us. It's a CapEx strategy for them. And they're like, hey, our equipment costs this. We're going to put it against that build. We're going to let it go. And it's a good deal. And for them, then they get all the software updates, all the service, everything that's coming through there. And it's yeah, for sure. We do get customers that at a certain size, maybe they're not your enterprise yet, but they do expect something that's more like the old IBM, SAP like business model, right? Their IT groups are sophisticated, they're larger, they're going to have a larger spend, and they want to do something that's kind of more like that with, here's a big annual fee, and we get these buckets of assets, and then we pay a maintenance charge and stuff like that. So we are running into that more and more, I'd say, on that like Fortune 2500 category than we used to see.
Hey,
so I think that's
Adam. What kind of actually, this could be for everybody. What kind of solutions tend to rise to the top for SMBs? I mean, what are you seeing in terms of the demand, and maybe what sort of shifts have you seen in what SMBs are generally, I know it's kind of a broad question, but are generally gravitating toward?
Yeah,
this is a statement of entry point, and it's like when new SMBs that are new to quote unquote IoT, what is it that they're finding really sells the value of connecting a bunch of stuff?
For sure. So the last 18 months, probably the number one thing has been enhanced serviceability. These machines are going all over the world. It's difficult to travel, and the connectivity to make it easier to service the machines and communicate with their customers. So that was like probably one of the biggest pushes right away. Can we get more information off the machine that can help us troubleshoot something, because we can't put people on airplanes and we can't fly them around and stuff. And I think that's still just going to get worse and worse because there's a major employment gap coming. There's not enough people entering the industrial manufacturing market to support this. So I think this is going to continue that trend.
Wow.
The other one is Rob and I grabbed coffee one day, like a year ago or a year and a half ago, and we're talking about IoT and how really you just have to move that like value needle, Rob was saying, just a little bit to get massive output. And so you're kind of competing with the clipboard. We see a lot of solutions that are competing with the clipboard. So like up in Seattle, we work with a cement mixing company, and their trucks go out every week. They go do their jobs. They're recording how much cement was dispersed. They're keeping it on the local controller on a USB stick. At the end of the week, one of the people from the office come out, take all those USB sticks out, so hundreds of USB sticks. They put them in these big Excel sheets and CSV files, and it's just this headache, right? Now the trucks come in, we take that data, we just upload it, put it into this big file for them, and all of a sudden, and it's like magic, right? It's like, this is great. That's such a simple solution that's solving a really big problem for them. And it's like, and then they can now get alerts on if something doesn't look right on the cement port earlier on in the week. And they get it every day. So besides that, they could only invoice at the end of the week. Now they're able to start invoicing daily. So they can really shorten that cash burn they have, right? That spend just from doing that.
I actually have a new customer that's a cement company, and they were talking about the real time fee, the transactions, and a lot of them use handhelds, or they'll use their smartphones, or they have a ruggedized type computing, in dash or even clippable laptop or whatever. And that's what they said that's changing their industry, is that they're able to transact real time as well. So not only the data that's collecting, but they're able to, and they don't have to have all this manual. And it used to be so just paper oriented. And so that's a big change, but I'm learning from you on that, because this is a company that a new customer of mine, that they just bought a cement company in the San Antonio area. And so they were asking me about a lot of the automation and things that are happening. So I might ping you offline to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty neat, because the next phase that we did with this company is we did smart batching. So like, as the cement was out there, we could actually get a health reading of the cement coming out, and then we could let the batch processing plant know what that health was of it. And so they know what the quality of their batch was. So in real time, they could get aggregate numbers of how that quality of the cement pour was coming out. And so that whole thing of just now getting back to the supplier, which is their own internal company, but their internal department of the batch supply, to what was being deployed, to do we have to invoice the customer, all just with like a handful of sensors, a controller, and a gateway. I mean, it's nothing that's super complex, right? And and they can get that data.
Well, Adam, I know that as you know, for all of our billions and billions of listeners, when they heard your story about grabbing 150 USBs, like I think 3,500 CISOs just died this morning. Just like this is why stuff happens.
Yeah.
Where were those USBs before?
Yeah, those things are like that is our industry though. That is all over our industry, all over manufacturing. There are very, very, very manual processes that you have to do that are a huge waste of time. And if you're a small company, you have to compete with a big company, you have to get as lean as possible. You have to figure out how, and because you can't recruit. It's so hard to recruit people to come work in manufacturing as well. And so now it's like if you're going to survive and you're competing with big national initiatives all over the globe, if you're really going to survive in this SMB manufacturing space, you got to figure out how to automate some of that low hanging fruit. And
it's happening in the ranching and ag industries as well. They have, a lot of them have camera systems all over the ranches, all over their land. And they actually have people that go out and pull USB sticks to start to look at what's on their cameras. And you're talking about processing, I think I've talked about this before, I have deja vu, millions and millions of pictures looking just for little anomalies or things that are happening on their fence line or animals or whatever, or even agricultural like data, is having to pull USB sticks manually and then go upload them to a computer and then looking through thousands and thousands of pictures or looking at data. I can't even imagine. So I'm like, yeah, this is happening all over. And I'm sure there are other examples where it's just common.
Yeah, they're killing jobs, huh?
Yeah. And then just accurate job reporting. I mean, we see a lot of companies like in the construction industry where they're a paving company or an agriculture industry, and they just need to know how much work was actually done on that job and how much product was dispersed. And getting that done, just taking that manual process out is another big deal. But all of these things that we're competing with the clipboard, we're competing with the actual handwritten notes or the typed in notes can be done. It can either be from a verification standpoint or from that becomes their actual billing system.
Right. And some things aren't even IoT. The robotic process automation is taking over some of that clipboard stuff and really just simplifying information where it used to be very manual intensive, and now that's just, but I just don't think that SMBs are as aware of some of those solutions out there as larger mid-sized companies and enterprise companies. At Compass, we define SMB as less than 1,000 employees. 100 or less is small. Soho is like 1 to 4 employees. And those demographics we were talking about how big these companies are and how their employment, like more than 97% of employees in the United States are SMB. Mm-hmm. And that just tells you, SMBs, like they kind of run everything. But when you start to drill into those segments, there are some like behavioral, the way they invest, the way they work with partners, the way they look at the supply chain. Yeah. I feel like the technology side of the industry, they're challenged because they're always trying to figure out which industry to go after, which size segment to go after. And many times they'll cast such a wide net that they're not really doing anything with any segment. They're not really making leeway. And it's the smaller tech companies, the smaller IoT companies that are out there that are heavily focused on 1 or 2 industries, and they have a massive win and they kind of grow organically from that. Then they kind of have a foundation. Then they can kind of invest and do a lot more that I see that are much more successful with some of these SMB companies that are out there.
Well, I was just thinking, this might be a really great insight for a lot of the smaller IoT players. The SMB market could be a great market to target because it is sort of the lowest common denominator when you look at the broader problem of how do we connect things and extract value, right? Going back to my early comment about these supply chain hubs, they didn't happen because the lowest common denominator was so low that it destroyed the solution readiness. I mean, if you don't have participants that are up to par, the strategy is not viable. You just, that whole, nice PowerPoint that you get from the strategy consulting firm that says you're going to save $1 gajillion, none of that happens. And actually, I've seen this happen a lot. You get these nice decks that corporations or C-suites pay millions of dollars for, that promises gigantic number. All that gets undermined by the fact that those very same consultants never looked at, okay, what does it actually take to deliver that value? Yeah. And a lot of times it's those participants, dependents, that are just simply not ready. And a great example is back in the day when I was doing the work for, I was like the interim CTO for a startup, a rather well-funded one, and they're trying to put together this whole logistics and transport thing. They're doing a lot of the stuff that we were looking at doing a lot of stuff that IBM's TradeLens is doing today. We found out, the ports, the people that are at the ports, the 3PLs, all these guys, they're total low tech. They use paper and fax. Guess what? The thinking was ahead of its time. The PowerPoint, that big number was way ahead of its time. What does that equal? Your IPO gets scrapped and your startup dies. And so for anyone who sits there and says hype is good, this is one of the reasons why I, when I hear stuff that's totally hyped up, I kind of get triggered, just because I've seen the consequences of hype and how not understanding the technology and what it takes to actually enable solutions and value propositions and ridiculous promises. Just if you don't do your homework, you get screwed.
So are you saying that a lot of what you're seeing is that there's all this massive hype, and a lot of these strategists or consultants are going in and they're just not really taking it through the execution phase or even the customer experience or customer solution phase. And so they didn't follow through all the way to the end.
No, not
and
even.
So they have bad data, they have bad information, and they're pushing a narrative that's wrong.
They don't have experience. They've never done it before. They don't know what it takes to actually make these solutions happen. And even the bigger, more strategic stuff, it's even more difficult. When you think about how many dollars are put into IT and in services, right? Think about it. The rate that IT and all this like digital stuff from products, services, software, all that stuff is growing, is outstripping the growth of all industries probably combined, right? But how does that make sense? How can the tools be growing faster than the economic value which is being expressed through other industries? So, you got to kind of wonder what's going on. Do you know what I'm saying? And then are these end market industries really getting the value for all this IT digital stuff that they're paying for?
So are we setting ourselves up to implode? There's a lot of players out there that are just going to implode.
We're imploding all the time. Marc. But here, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but there's opportunity, because you just talked about it. You just talked about it, Adam, and so did the rest of us. Is that you're just looking in the wrong place, and you're looking at the opportunity completely wrong.
Yeah. Well, and Adam had a good point. He was talking about it's this simple. Like, people that are really making it so much more complex are the ones that are just failing. But you talked about your just the Slack example and how simplistic that was, and it's not rocket science, but you just made a lot of people happy that were all involved in that issue.
It is so cool. And just two quick things on this. I think The other thing that's pretty neat is if you took it, one step a little more advanced, if you will. Well, let me just back up. To your point, Leonard, that whole deployment of a solution. If you go in our industry that we're in, if you go into, we're fortunate enough that we came for our industry, right, for 10 years previous before starting this, that to win a business at a new customer is like 2 to 3 years of work just to get controllers and sensors on a machine. Because they already have a supply chain put into place, their customers know what they're using, their HMIs, their controllers, all that stuff. So if you get in there just to do that, it's going to take you 2 to 3 years. Then your IoT deployment into production is going to take you another 18 months. When you work with a partner that's trying to bring in controls, like we just went into production with an OEM, they spent 5 years getting their controllers and sensors spec'd on that machine. They won a 5-year supply contract, and now we got Elevate on their stuff. You can't, that is such a long cycle time. You have to have those partners that they have really big wins that they can make from the hardware piece. This is our strategy. And then you get brought in at the right time, and you're a trusted supply chain partner with them. But if we had to try to do that before, they'd say, oh, you want to work with us, and you have to meet with our control partners and our sensor partners and all this, and the overhead is huge, right? And so I think having those PowerPoints that say it's this huge market, yeah, but the amount of time that's going to make that happen, the amount of time afterwards, it better not go out and hire 100 people to do this because it's going to be a ramp. And just to kind of build on that collaboration thing, we have a customer in the shipping industry. And I think, Stephanie, to your point, we started very small, worked with the application with one of our partners was on big forklift trucks. And now we work with their barges and their generators because the end customer said, hey, if you guys can do this, can you do this, can you do this? They had to update the software on the controllers to get a better utilization calculation out of their forklift trucks. And the company that was doing all of our partner is based out of Colorado. And these trucks were all in the Pacific Northwest and Alaska and everything. They were able to update the software on their controllers from Colorado, collaborate with the end customer to cycle the machine, and they were able to change all of that logic that was sitting on that controller. That couldn't happen without IoT. And they don't think of it IoT, right? But it's kind of pushing a Tesla update in a way to heavy machinery, and now all of a sudden they're getting the better business value they needed to operate their operations. And I think that's so cool. Just a few years ago, you were flying people around, going in there, loading in the USB stick, updating the software, and now it's just oh, cool. We're sure.
Okay, I have to tell you guys a funny story. So my husband is out of town this week, and he has 2 massive pieces of equipment being delivered. And he's asked me to operate the skid steer loader.
Yeah.
When the guy gets here, because they're not allowed to touch his equipment on the ranch. And I said, well, I've already driven it before. And he's like, what? He freaked out. And I was like, yeah, 1 week you were gone and the animals needed hay and the skid steer loader was already underneath a piece of hay. And I picked it up and he was freaked out. And then he's like, well, we need to practice. You need to practice. So when you get here, you know exactly where to put it. And I was like, I got this. I might have to document that this week when they get here. But yeah, I can drive some equipment.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
That is awesome. Well done, you.
I figured it out all by myself. And he's like, did you not figure out that I had the seat belt plugged in and you have to undo the seat belt and put it back in for it to restart? I was like, I figured it out.
Hey, guys.
See, doing that stuff on your ranch is staging for you to get a job at the big Yellowstone ranch. So
there we go.
Guys, I think this is going to be the only non-E episode we've had.
Don't say it though. I'm like, I hope Leonard doesn't say it so that Rob doesn't drop it.
Oh, you mean so Spotify won't label us as explicit this time?
Yeah.
Cuss words.
Wow, congratulations, guys.
Cursing.
Yeah, this is the G-rated version of IoT Coffee Talk.
Feels good to be G-rated.
Yeah,
I love that.
Oh, before Rob ruins everything.
I won't ruin it. I promise.
Right?
I'm like your Gary Vaynerchuk dropping F-bombs every other word. You know. Yeah.
But hey, Adam, dude, I think this is like one of the best episodes we've ever had. I mean, I loved it, and I think the rest of you guys did as well, right? I mean,
That's good.
wow. I can't wait to listen back on this one because there's so many great points so many nuggets. It's like ridiculous, and every single SMB I think needs to watch this, as well as all the small IoT players out there. I mean, there's like some major truth bombs that were delivered in this one. So thank you, Adam, dude. It really tremendously awesome. And eventually you'll have to tell me what you're eating because, dude, you're like swole like a beast, man. You're like friggin' insanity. The only thing that's swelling on me right now is my belly. So, and I have to figure out how to get rid of it because we have to start traveling. And
hey, just follow Adam on Instagram. You'll see what he's doing every day.
Okay. Oh man.
So I just got a Peloton, so I need if any of you guys have one, give me the tips and tricks because I'm definitely a newbie.
Just use it.
Use it.
Of course, that is the plan. You don't invest in something like that.
It's not a coat hanger.
And then no. But you know what? It makes a really nice surface area to dry your comforter.
Oh my gosh!
So I've heard.
Stop it.
Yeah, and keep your puppies away from it.
Okay, David, send me your scream name later.
Oh no, because no, it's embarrassing. But use it. Find a coach that you gel with, and that's it. I mean,
I was already doing a search for which ones like have classes with rap music because that's my vibe.
Yeah,
there you go. Plenty of hip hop there.
All right, guys.
Awesome.
All right, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Hey,
Who's closing?
subscribe, click.
Just click, join, listen to us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Stitcher, on Google Podcasts, and many other places.
Marc, you drinking beer?
IoT Coffee Talk.
Marc, are you drinking cerveza?
No, this is water.
That's why.
Yeah.
I would like to conclude with this, like the path to success is really hard for small and medium enterprises. So be patient.
That's why they have to listen to this episode. It's not that hard if you're going in a better direction. Maybe not the right one, but it's better than what you're on right now. Yeah. Excellent. Awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks for joining us, Adam. That was great.
Thanks,